And Utah just keeps on keeping on with the surprises. Front page of the Salt Lake Trib today, governor and legislature strike historic booze deal. Booze deal? Oh yes, the weirdest liquor laws in the country are being changed. And in at least one instance, it is possible they are getting even weirder. Now, Utah is a little more than 60% Mormon. The state legislature is more than 80% Mormon. And as you may know, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints ixnays on the ooze bay. No alcohol whatsoever. And in a state where the wall of separation between church and state is sometimes a little crumbly, that has resulted in very strange state laws about liquor. For example, in Utah, there are no such things as bars that are open to the public. If you wish to be served drinks, you must fill out a membership form, pay a fee, and join a private club. Until a couple of years ago, you could also not be served more than 1 ounce of liquor at one time. And for some reason I never quite understood, for a while you were liable to be served your liquor in tiny little nip-sized bottles. Not on the airplane, like at the place I know. They got rid of the mini bottle rule a couple of years ago. But now, with these new changes, you will not have to join a club anymore either. Progress. Here's the part I still don't understand. It used to be, under the old rules, that after you ordered your drink at a restaurant, the bartender would not be allowed to just serve it to you across the bar like a normal bartender. The bartender, in fact, had to either walk around a partition and hand it to you, or hand it to a server to walk around the partition to you. Why the partition? I don't know, but under the new rules, the partition will be gone. But the new rules that are agreed to by the legislature now, they say that you don't have to have the partition anymore, but they do have a kooky new rule to replace it. Check this out. New restaurants, under the new rules, have to have a separate special area for the mixing of drinks. A separate out-of-sight mixing area that is out of the potential view of children. In other words, you need a closed-off drink mixing room because booze is just that powerful? I don't get it. Here now, Rocky Anderson, the former mayor of Salt Lake City, Utah, and the founder and executive director of the High Road for Human Rights organization. Mayor Anderson, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Good to be with you, Rachel.
Please tell me that I explained some of that wrong. The Zion
You did
curtain.
really well, actually.
Was that accurate?
It was, and I practiced law for 21 years, was mayor for 8 years. I've had a really hard time figuring out these laws because there were so many categories of places where you could get a drink or where you couldn't get a drink. But we've actually had, for a long time, you walk into a restaurant, you can order a drink like anywhere else in the free world, but these clubs were a particular embarrassment. You can imagine being mayor and you bring people in from out of town, especially during the Olympics, and they have to fill out a card to get a membership in order to get a drink. And these are changes that I've been advocating for a long time, and thank goodness we've got a very reasonable and world-traveled governor, John Huntsman, who had enough sense to work with everybody and bring about these major changes. And we've had an evolutionary process for many years. We went from brown bag laws to the mini bottles that you talked about, and now it's pretty much like anywhere else, especially getting rid of the private clubs.
I could imagine I was just going to say, I could imagine that it did sort of encourage a certain entrepreneurial spirit for people getting around the old rules. I mean, I would imagine you had to be sort of creative, especially if you were a bartender.
Oh, of course. And then there, you know, somebody would walk in a club and anybody in the world would sponsor them, so the Liquor Commission cracked down on that and said you had to walk in with whoever was sponsoring you. It really, I think there are a lot of people who are afraid that now Utah has been launched into the 20th century in terms of its liquor laws, but everybody else is pretty happy with these changes. And I think it's going to be great for tourism. I think that it's going to be wonderful for the people who live here, who have had to try to get around all these obstacles. And they're obstacles that have been put in place primarily by people who never seem to go out, Rachel. So this is a good thing all the way around.
They certainly don't go out for a drink. Definitely. I do have to ask you about the idea of the drink mixing room. A columnist named Sean Means at this Salt Lake Tribune today said, why stop there? He said, why not install a cauldron, have the bartender wear a pointy hat with stars and moons on it, and paint the words "potions, no admittance" on the door? It does involve a sort of fear of the sight of alcohol. Does it strike you as strange?
Well, it's very strange. And there are just a couple of people in the legislature that have a lot of sway with the rest of the legislators, or many of the other legislators. And this is something they insisted upon, and I think it's this idea that any progress you make, you've got to have a little regress along with it. And I think that in this evolutionary process, we'll see these kind of silly prohibitions eliminated, but we're going to have a situation where the existing restaurants can get rid of the glass partition, and the bartender can simply hand the drink over the bar, and any new restaurants are going to have to hide away the mixing of drinks. And behind this is this ridiculous notion that children who are exposed to anybody mixing a drink may be somehow negatively influenced by that.
Mesmerized by the shaking sound or something? I don't know.
Yeah, but you know, we've got another very strange law. They did increase the 1 ounce to a 1.5 ounce pour, but it's still, you know, I order a scotch on the rocks and the scotch doesn't come up over the ice cube. And then you have to order, you can order a second drink, you call it a sidecar, they bring you another 1.5 ounce drink in another glass, but you have to pick up the glass and pour it in your other glass so you can have a real drink. So, but we're going to see those kinds of things change too. I think there's no question about it.
Rocky Anderson, former mayor of Salt Lake City, thank you for explaining this to us tonight, and thanks for joining us. It's really nice to see you. Thanks.
Thanks for understanding.
I'm trying. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying. All right, coming up on Countdown.